If you're just starting out playing Scum, there are some things that are worth knowing. These are going to be some super simple tips to help you survive a little bit longer or to know how the world works. The game isn't that intuitive, and in some ways it can be quite confusing and frustrating. So I want to talk to you about some things that are worth knowing if you're a beginner and are dealing with all the intricacies of the game. One of the first things the game teaches you is how to craft a stone knife. The stone knife can then be used to cut down bushes, to make a spear, or to cut up your clothes, to make bandages or a bag. However, one of the things that's frustrating about this is often when you craft a stone knife, you'll just drop it on the floor. And this happens with a lot of different things. You'll see it here on the floor. Now, what I'd recommend doing is going into your inventory and then dragging it into a free slot in your pants, for example, so that it's then actually stored on your person. You can then assign it to a quick access slot, and that way it's not automatically dropped if you pick something else up or if you move away from where you crafted it. This problem becomes clear in a lot of other ways as well, because anytime you pick anything up into your hands where you've already got something on your hands, you'll just drop the other thing on the floor. So if you've got a wooden spear, what I'd recommend doing is to put that into a holster on your back. You can only put certain items in here, so once again, you might end up dropping your spear, for example. That can be frustrating. This also happens sometimes randomly, like crafting a lockpick from a bobby pin, as you can see here, for example. I just chucked it on the floor. It's also not even in the vicinity marker. So if you go into your inventory, you'll see there's an option to see what's in the vicinity, but it wasn't highlighted there. And it's also not easy to see because it's on the floor somewhere around me, but you can see the vicinity doesn't show it and it's not clear where it is. And you have to really look for this. And when it's dark, it can be quite tricky. If you press enter on your keyboard, you can go into first person mode, which then makes it easier to see these things and then to pick them back up. But then it's in my hands, so I then want to put it in a slot in my clothing because otherwise it's just going to fall on the floor again. This can happen even if you've got loads of storage space. You can see here that I'm trying to make a bundle of rags, and I've got some fair amount of storage space in my backpack, for example, and spare slots there. I go about the process of crafting the rags, as you'll see here. They still end up on the floor and you end up having to pick them up. The other thing that you'll note here is the currently craftable section of the inventory, which is very useful. I'll show you more on that in a little while, but it means that you can easily craft things or see what's available to be crafted. If you're lucky, at some point you'll find something like a holster. So you can say I've got a melee weapon holster, so I can now put my knife in that. That's a logical place for it to be and to be easily accessed. You can find gun holsters and things as well. If you haven't got much storage space on you, your clothes don't have many places to store, you can still craft things from this section, which is a little book with a tick next to it, which is marked as currently craftable, from anything in the vicinity or on your person. This makes it really easy to work out what you can craft based on what's nearby. It also means you don't necessarily need to be able to carry everything in order to be able to do this. Sometimes, though, it might go a bit odd. You can see here that I'm trying to craft this improvised courier backpack, for example, and it's not quite working because I haven't got all the bits that are necessary. So you can see if you go into the details section of anything you're trying to craft, that you can work out what you need. So you need rag strips, rope, and a cutting tool for this. I've got the rag strips on the floor here, and you can see it only says I've got 1 out of 3, but that's because you can actually individually select them. So we can select them on the ground, it will highlight them in red, and then you can see now I've got all 3 and the rope and the cutting tool, but it's still not giving me the option to craft. And that's because it says any cutting tool, but weirdly I had to go into my inventory to be able to select to make sure it was highlighted as a thing. So if I go over to the inventory section, I had to select the cleaver to show it was the cutting tool I wanted to use and then go about crafting. You can see the system is a bit confusing sometimes. If you're not carrying those things all on your person, it can be a bit complicated. One of the things you'll find is you probably end up hurting yourself in the game, sometimes really easily from a small fall like this. You can see that I'm now bleeding. Now, not all bleeds necessarily need to be treated. This is only a small bleed to my foot from falling off a cliff, and you can see there's blood coming out of my foot, but if you look at the section on your health, you can also track and see what injuries have happened to you, and that health section is well worth looking at. So if you go into here, you'll see how much blood I'm using, how much damage it's taken away from you. You can see the negative impacts of this. Eventually, a wound like this will heal itself. It does make sense to bandage whenever you can, though. When you're in a bit more danger and you've taken a lot of damage, you'll want to bandage yourself up. Go to the health section, click on the bleed, then click on a rag, and then click apply to treat it. Now, if things get really bad, and as you can see, I'm in a real bad state here. I've only got 20% health left. I've had to fight a lot of zombies. and I haven't got any bandages, but I've got a lot of bleeds to deal with, so I've now got a problem. Now, you can cut up your clothes to make the rags to then be able to bandage yourself, or alternatively, you can search a zombie corpse and then use their clothes instead. So what you can do is, you can see I've got one dirty rag here from searching that zombie. I can apply that to the wound and slightly heal it, but I can also cut up their tactical jacket, cut that into rags, and then use that. Now, this isn't ideal necessarily because it's obviously dirty. The rags are then dirty. If possible, you want to clean them with alcohol, but you can do it this way. The other thing you can do is you can multi-select multiple rags at once and then apply them all rather than doing them individually. This is a faster way to make sure the bleed is healed properly, because it usually takes more than one rag to deal with a bleed. In order to survive in the game, you have to drink and eat, but you do need to be careful what you're drinking and eating. For example, if you try and drink seawater, you'll end up being sick, and then that'll have a negative impact on your health. Obviously, what you want to do instead is to drink good water. Now, if you go up to a body of water and press and hold F on it, you'll see options to, for example, wash your eyes with fresh water. You can drink that because fresh water is good. You'll also find other areas where you might be able to get fresh water, like from a well, or you might find random things like I have, where I've found this watering can. You can check that and check the contents of it, and I've seen this has got fresh water in it and it's pretty full. So I'm just going to drink a bunch of water now to make sure I'm hydrated, and I stay that way for a while. If you hit tab and then go over to the metabolism section, you can then see what you've drunk and the impact that's having on your body, and any other things that you've eaten or drunk and the negative or positive impacts they're going to have. You'll also find, if you do find cans of drink or bottles of drink, that it's worth just having a look at them and examining them. If you hover over it, you'll get some information on it. If you press control at the same time, you get even more information about it, and it will tell you various different things about how it might be good. It's worth checking as well to make sure how much is in there, and also watching out for the quality of it, because it might be that the drink's gone bad, and if you drink it, it'll give you a problem. But you can see, obviously, drinking a soft drink has more benefits than just water, because it's also giving you other things like calories and energy and other improvements to your health. You can, however, also drink too much. So you can see I'm now full, I'm over full on water, and that's obviously a bad thing. Hit escape twice to stop drinking in that situation. You might also find that you then need to pee at some point. The character will tell you they need to urinate. Press and hold tab, open up the toilet section, and then do a little wee. You want to find somewhere safe to do this, but the good benefit of using a female character is that they crouch down to wee and so are less visible, so you can actually hide from enemies or people nearby and do that quite safely. Now, in terms of food, obviously you need to make sure you're well fed as well. Sometimes this can be difficult if you're trying to find food sources. If you look out, you'll see bushes with little red berries on them, and sometimes searching those can result in getting foodstuffs. It's worth checking the foodstuffs by hovering over it and pressing control to expand it to make sure they're not going to poison you. Just read the description and what's there to find out if they're any good. Berries don't give you a lot of food, but they can give you some sustenance to help. You also find not every bush is going to have berries on it, and also some of the bushes just want you to cut them down to make sticks and things like that. Obviously not ideal. What I found is best is to unequip your weapon, so anything that can cut, and then when you run up to a bush, you won't be cutting it. Instead, you'll be focusing on finding bushes that actually can feed you. Bushes are useful in other ways as well. You can use bushes to hide from the robots, for example. So if you go into one of the high loot areas that has a robot in it, you can use the bush to temporarily hide from view from those robots. Now, if it's seen you go into the bush, that might not work, but it is one way to avoid the potential dangers. Just hide in there for a little while. One of the other stupid things about the game is you might find it's difficult to eat. So I'm trying to eat this garlic, for example. You can see that the option to eat it is grayed out. It turns out it's because I was wearing a mask. So if you've equipped a mask, you then can't eat without first taking the mask off. It's obvious when you think about it, but it's a bit of a contrived mechanic from the game because your character's not clever enough to just put the mask down. Something to bear in mind. If you're lucky, you'll find a sewing kit in the game. Sewing kits can be used to repair your clothing items, obviously. Now, this is useful in more ways than you'd expect. For example, it can be used to repair items of clothing which have a marker on them indicating they don't have much space. You can see this one, for example, has got this red hatched area blocking off some storage space in there. If I repair the bag, that's then opened up so I can then use that bit of extra storage. Unfortunately, the sewing kit won't fully repair all bits of equipment. So if you kill a zombie, you can see he's got a military shirt. Now, this military shirt in theory is better than my standard shirt because obviously it's darker, it's not orange, so it makes you less visible. But the problem here is, even when repaired, you see it's still damaged to the point that some of the storage in it is unusable, and you can't repair it any more than this with just a sewing kit, so it's impossible to make zombie stuff better, really, other than slightly repairing it. If you're lucky enough to find a gun in the game, and by the way, you can make a suppressor out of a can, that's worth knowing, you don't necessarily need to find a magazine for it, because you can load your gun up with a single bullet. So I haven't got a magazine for this gun, just a single bullet loaded into it. Obviously, you want to try and find a magazine at some point, because I've got a bunch of bullets. Thumbing bullets in there is not going to be ideal, but it still might save your life if you walk into a building and find there's a zombie in there and he's on his own and you got a good shot on him. You can deal with that. However, don't get complacent, because even when you've got a gun, things might go horribly wrong still. We were just chilling out in this little town and suddenly a horde of zombies just came up and started destroying us. I made the mistake of trying to switch to a different weapon after I'd shot my bullet, and then I dropped my gun on the floor because it wasn't assigned to a holster, and now I'm running around with a bow with no arrows and a missing gun which is somewhere on this road. I could try and find it or just switch to my melee weapon. So you've really got to take care of how you holster things and how you can then easily access those, and also just watching what you're doing and not being too complacent about your surroundings, because we ended up dying to these zombies and I lost all the gear that I'd collected. Another thing is, if things get really bad and you can see that I'm wandering around with 2% health here, limping, you can just commit suicide. There are negative implications to doing this though, because when you respawn you have a negative impact on your intelligence. Another thing that's tricky is lighting a torch or a fire. This is clumsy as first, and so it can be confusing. Now, one of the things that's worth knowing is you can press and hold F on a lot of items to see the various different things you can do with them. You can see doing it on this fire allows me to choose different ways of fueling the fire, examining it, destroying it, and other things. With a torch, I found it was very difficult to work out how to light it. I built a torch so I could see at night, and it was very hard to work out how to light it. It's pretty easy once you know how, but I didn't know how. So I crafted this torch, and then what you need to do is you need to make something to light it with. And the way to do this is to go into the crafting section. What you want to do is to create a fire drill. So the fire drill requires a cutting torch and then some wooden sticks. So it's actually not that difficult to make once you cut down a little bush. And then what you can do is then you can right click on your torch and click light. Now this uses the fire drill and it makes one use of the fire drill. So the fire drill as standard only has 3 uses on it. So if you use it to light your torch, obviously you've only got 2 more uses on it, which is worth bearing in mind, because the other thing I discovered is if you search something with a torch in your hand and then, for example, go to eat, it's then put my torch in my bag, which has then put it out, which means then I have to get it back out again into my hands and then relight it, which then uses up another bit of the fire drill. I don't know an easy way around this yet. I haven't discovered that. So if you have, let me know in the comments. But that's frustrating because it means you have to keep using the fire drill. Now, if you're lucky, you might find a lighter or matches on zombies or in the world when you're searching it. This will hopefully make lighting things a bit easier rather than having to craft a fire drill all the time, because obviously that requires cutting down a bush and then you only get 3 uses on it. It's a bit fiddly. And you won't need a torch necessarily all the time, but it is worth knowing. So another thing that's worth knowing, really simple tip here, is if you want to know which direction you're heading in, just open the minimap and carry on running. You can see the little dot on the screen is going upwards in B2 here, so I know the direction I'm heading in, which is useful. The information on the metabolism and health sections is also super useful. The metabolism, for example, shows you your progress in melee weapons, so I'm actually increasing my skills in this area. As long as you don't die, you'll then be increasing your melee abilities when fighting, and this applies to strength, constitution, intelligence, and all those other things. If you're putting a lot of effort into getting around the world, you'll probably find that you're getting tired. One thing you can do is you can press and hold tab, go into the actions section, and then you can select lay down. Now, this is worth doing, especially when you're logging out, to look after your character. You can see I'm laying down next to a fire to hopefully dry off, but also if you go into the metabolism section, the health section, you'll find that exhaustion is then basically being treated here because it's basically recovering faster because I'm laying down. If you were wondering what those little zombies were at the beginning, I ate some psilocybin mushrooms, which are actually tripping me out. So these aren't real, they won't kill you, but if you want to have a bit of fun, psilocybin mushrooms is the way to go. Although they do get annoying after a while because it does last for quite some time, this effect. And as you can see, they follow you around everywhere, but only I can see them, so it's not a problem. But you can splat them if you want to, and that can be fun too. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for watching.